Well, it's time now for Media Watch, and James Creedon has joined us in the studio. It's good to
Hi,
see you,
Laura.
James. More revelations, of course, from the Paradise Papers.
That's
It is day 2 after that mammoth leak about tax havens. What have you been looking at specifically?
Well, lots of different headlines in no particular order. I think one that's quite interesting is this. The Paradise Papers are just the tip of the iceberg, because we had that last year, 18 months ago already, with the Panama Papers, and now
they must still be going through that lot. And this lot comes out.
Because, I mean, the poor journalists who have to sift through all this stuff, it's kind of like an impossible task, because there's such a mountain of material. But in this interview in Vice, they spoke to John Christensen, who is the director of the Tax Justice Network, and the whole question of plausible deniability as a defence came up. And he said, look, we shouldn't buy that. Firstly, ignorance is absolutely no excuse before the law. They should know better. By and large, they should know that any tax avoidance scheme involving offshore structures is likely to be sketchy, and they should steer well clear of it. But I think the thing is,
it's so complicated, isn't it? For example, Bono owns shares in a Maltese company, right, that bought shares in a Lithuanian shopping mall 10 years ago. I mean, is he seriously expected to keep track of all?
I guess this is the thing. You can't. But I think what he's saying here is, if you're involved at all, don't be too surprised if some sketchy behaviour comes up, because this is how money is.
Put your money in your local bank where you can see what it's doing.
Or invest in property until it all crashes.
I'm speaking to someone from the Tax Justice Network later on.
Gosh, well, it's tentacular, this one. Another headline here in the express.co.uk. This is giving the microphone over to the chairman of the Cayman Islands Stock Exchange, and he thinks that all these journalists and hackers should be put in jail. And this is this turns on the whole issue of privacy, right? Because indeed, perhaps some not entirely legal methods were used in gleaning, in getting all this information together. Now, that whole issue of is touched on by Jake Bernstein in the New York Times.
Yesterday.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. We're tracking down his thoughts at every moment. He said, in the world of offshore finance, privacy long ago became a corrosive secrecy. So in other words, that's the answer to what this guy was saying, that, you know, hacking and leaking, this is illegal behaviour. Yeah, but what is the greater evil, I suppose, maybe not the right word, but what is a greater immoral act? Right. The right of privacy keeps this underground river of money secret, but its existence has real world consequences. Privacy is not an absolute right when the public interest is at stake. They go on then to talk about how this whole issue already came up 18 months ago when it was in the Panama Papers, you know, whether or not confidential information about people who broke no laws should be put up online. Now, the argument that the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists who were behind all of this would use is they never seriously contemplated such a move, putting everything in the hack up online. They did try to filter through.
WikiLeaks, is it?
Right, exactly, where WikiLeaks just massive data dump, everything's up there.
Just a data dump, they call it.
Gosh, what else do we have? I suppose just some of the kind of headlines randomly across the press. Everything we need to know. You see, this is the Telegraph trying to condense it. They're doing the opposite of the journalists in other papers where they're still trying to figure out what actually happened. Right. They're saying, OK, let's condense it. We had, of course, the Queen, big focus on her. One has to say sorry, says Metro. One probably won't, but there you go. The tax dodge.
Bet on it.
The tax dodge parasites. This is a focus on Lewis Hamilton. So whether it be politicians, heads of state, sports stars, Steve Bannon here, focus on him. Look, it's kind of endless. Apple
companies. Is there anyone on earth not implicated in
and this is going to reawaken
anyone
that whole debate about Apple and whether or not they're dodging tax in one way, shape or form or another. Will we have a look at some tweets? Gosh, this one...
People are angry, aren't they?
They're very annoyed. While the rich... You could really predict these tweets, I have to say. While the rich stash away millions to avoid tax, this disabled woman is eating out of bins to survive. Now, that's a particularly harsh, I suppose, contrast. But it is the reality. There are, I suppose, cuts in some areas and then people not paying their taxes in others by dodging it. While those of us struggle, the rich duckers are tax dodging. How is that fair? What else do we have? Lewis Hamilton, focus on him. These are more UK focused, but it was something like 714 Indians were named in the Panama Papers as well. So it really depends on what media you look at. Did you use the NHS and UK education system? You can pick up on the tone. Two more tweets. Nothing illegal about the tax havens. That's agreed, but everything immoral about it. That's what we... the same argument that we hear a lot, not illegal, but is it moral? Probably not. And just finally, a tweet saying bravo to the journalists at the ICIJ and all of the affiliated newspapers and media that are involved in these revelations.
I don't think this will be the last of these leaks.
Gosh.
James. I think more to come.
We'll have to extend your bulletin.
Yes, that's the way it is these days, isn't it?
10 hours of Laura Cellier.
Oh, lovely.
That'd be great.
James, thank you very much indeed. We've only got a few minutes for you, I'm afraid.